Everyone knows me as the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, but I want to be able to help so much in the community that they remember me just as that person.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Joanne Williams. Last week's Super Bowl winner Donald Driver made his football retirement official. While he holds many of the Packers' receiving records, it's his off-the-field contributions that many will remember. If you're looking for money for college, we'll tell you about an upcoming activity you don't want to miss. And we'll talk with community arts activist Jody Alexander. But first, we begin with violinist Hannah White. She comes from a very talented music family and started playing when she was only 6. Her list of honors and achievements would be impressive for any adult, and she's only 13.
Meet Wisconsin native Hannah White. Hannah White has played the violin since she was 6 years old and is at a level where she now attends an academy in Illinois for gifted pre-college musicians. Hannah enjoys the violin most when she performs and competes.
I like the violin, but it could be a little humbling because you could be out of tune or make mistakes. It's very hard to play it, but it pays off in the end.
What's your favorite song or songs to play?
I actually like every song I play, but my favorite composers are Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky, Prokofiev, Sibelius, and Khachaturian.
Who accompanies you when you play?
Well, when I'm in Illinois, I use Mrs. Milana. Otherwise, I use my brothers, Jonah White and Joshua White.
having supportive parents has helped Hannah on her musical journey.
When Hannah first started playing the violin, she was 6.5, and we made it a bonding experience with her. Stephen didn't really know the violin, but he would hold the music for her, and then so she would get to spend time with Dad, and so that was their bonding time, and we encouraged her a lot.
She really enjoys playing the violin, so we really appreciated that in a daughter that was so young to adapt to responsibility in the area of music.
She has brothers. How are they involved in the music world?
They accompany her, and they play the piano. They compete. So they have a very active piano life, just like Hannah has an active violin life.
For more information on Hannah White, you can contact 262-628-8845.
We're joined now by Jody Alexander, advocate, researcher, and collector of African and African American art. Welcome.
Hi.
We were just talking about art and what is art. When you talk to people about African American art, how do you define it?
African American art tells a story. It reflects our history, and it is an excellent learning tool that I use in my workshops, especially when I'm working with young kids, to have a hands-on experience with African sculpture, perhaps, or to view the art of one of the major leading African American artists like Romare Bearden, Jacob Lawrence, Hale Woodruff, Aaron Douglas. Most of their art tells a story, and you can learn history just by looking. If you're looking correctly, looking for the story within a piece of art, then that is, to me, that's a learning tool.
Now, you said you're going to have a program at the Washington Park Library.
Yes.
Dealing with art and history. How are you going to tie the two together?
Many of the artists that I just named, specifically maybe Jacob Lawrence in the Migration series, what I do, I like to use their art to tell the history. So I would use Jacob Lawrence's 60-panel Migration series to talk about, or highlight is a better word, to highlight certain reasons why African Americans left the South and moved to the North. Or I would use Aaron Douglas' Slavery Through Reconstruction mural, and we would point out different things in the mural that specifically talks about that period of history.
Why do you have to hold these kind of seminars for people? Isn't it just part of the culture that we all share?
Unfortunately, what I hear a lot is, we don't learn this in school, Miss J. They're not teaching us this in school. And with it being Black History Month, I get a little, I don't want to complain. I'm so glad that we do have Black History Month so that we can feel free to talk about Black history. But it's so hard. There's so much history, you can't learn Black history in just 1 month. There's so much history. It needs to be in the schools. It needs to be every day. I live and I breathe it, and I want to talk about it all the time.
When you have your program, do people get to ask questions? Do they get to make some art themselves?
Well, there's different programs that I do. The program that I'm going to be doing at the Washington Park Library, it's an after-school program from February 18th through February 22nd. It's 5 to 6 o'clock. And I'm hoping that parents will come with their children. And what we do an interactive project. We talk about history. We have an information station where kids can go and they can look at books. They can look at actual artifacts, things that I bring from my own personal library, my own personal collection. It's on display. We get to talk about it. We get to do a little project. We use the Romare Bearden collage aspect, and we build collages with just images from a certain period. We'll start from slavery and we'll go to the civil rights movement.
When you deal with children with this material, have you ever had a kid have that aha moment where they look at it and they've suddenly made the connection that what they're seeing there is something that they may have heard about in school but not enough?
As a matter of fact, one of my highlights from a program I did Monday night, I showed Sisters of Selma at another library location, and a 7-year-old girl came in. We had the Sisters of Freedom display on loan from Mount Mary College, and it's just it's a traveling exhibition, and it highlights all these African-American pioneer women who have made strides for us. And a little girl came in, she was 7 years old, and she was so cute, and she's looking at this, and she wanted to know who this was. And I had these bookmarks, and she said, could she have a bookmark? And I said, well, you need to have a book so you can use the bookmark. And we had a display of pioneering Black women on a table. And so she went over and she looked at the books, and she said, isn't this lady the same lady that's on that board over there? And I said, yes, it is. She said, well, I want to learn about her. So she took that book, and she said, now can I have the bookmark? And I gave her the bookmark, and she was happy. That was a highlight for me, because if I reach one child and they want to know more, then I feel like I'm doing something relevant.
Give me the date and time of the event again.
It's February 18th through February 22nd. It's from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I'm hoping that parents will come with their children, and it's free.
At the Washington Park Library?
At the Washington Park Library.
All right. Thank you very much.
Impossible escapes, heartbreaking separations, families reunited. The secret tales of William Still and the Underground Railroad.
He was the go-to guy. He got things done.
The inside story of the brightest moments in one of America's darkest chapters.
Here are some special programs from PBS that will run from February 18th through the 22nd. The programs, documentaries, and segments will add context, depth, and nuance to the national conversation about gun violence in America. Next week on Black Nouveau, we'll talk with some young men in our community about violence and what they feel can be done about it. If you're preparing for college in the fall, then College Goal, Wisconsin is where you want to be on February 23rd. Alberto Molinado is here to tell us about it. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is where parents and prospective college students should be. Why?
Well, it's their best opportunity to sit down with experts in financial aid and with volunteers from all corners of our city and the different institutions here in Milwaukee, to get their questions answered, to go through the process of filling out a free application for federal student aid, be eligible for some scholarship dollars for all the participants. So it's a family affair. We have multiple sites in the Metro Milwaukee area throughout the state of Wisconsin where families can go and get that process done.
Now, some parents and prospective college students will think, oh, this is easy. I just write a couple of applications, and then they send me some money, and then I go to college. Right? Wrong?
It doesn't happen that easily. It's a process. It takes time, but and that's why we offered this opportunity, is for families to really, troubleshoot any questions, get the right information, the most accurate information about how to fill out the FAFSA, and learn about the new things that are happening with that process.
Now, tell people what the FAFSA is.
FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid.
And why does everybody need it?
Well, because an important fact is that 80% of students that complete the FAFSA end up attending college. So it's a very important indicator for students to actually fulfill their their academic dreams. So financial aid, it's probably the biggest worry in the minds of a lot of young people. It's probably the biggest obstacle for students of colors and first-generation students. When they think about college, the first thing that comes to mind is money, and how am I going to acquire that money? Well, here's a free application that the federal government puts out, and here's a free event where families and students can come and get that done.
Some people may believe there really isn't enough money for them to go to college, but it's out there, isn't it?
It's out there, and the reality is that most scholarships and different ways of acquiring dollars to go to college, it's unclaimed, and students don't apply to those scholarships because they think they might not qualify for some reason. And there's scholarships for everyone out there, and there's different opportunities to get money to make college a reality.
A lot of parents just hear about athletic scholarships. They think their son or daughter is going to be a great athlete, and that's how they're going to go to college. But the major percentage don't go that way, right?
Correct. There's academic scholarships. There's scholarships for students who are 6'4". There's scholarships for students who are lefties. So there's definitely a scholarship out there for every student. The most important thing is to apply early, to apply often, and write down all the places that they're applying every day, and connecting with the resources. Their guidance counselors, admissions representatives, financial aid representatives, folks from their own community, their churches. They're out there waiting to help and willing to help.
Now, this particular event is a one-day activity.
It's a two-day, actually.
2 days.
It originated as a one-day affair. It was a Sunday. Now it has morphed into a Saturday, Sunday to allow more families to come and benefit from the free services. Both days, the event happens at 2 p.m. So folks can go to church, get their breakfast and do all the activities that happen in those days.
Now, if you want to find a location, is there a website?
Yes, there's a website, and it's www.collegegowi.org altogether. So again, www.collegegowi.org. And there they can, if they want to volunteer for the event, they can sign up for that. If they want to know what locations to go to receive these free services, they can find all their locations in their own individual communities.
And it's free.
It's free.
The best deal you can get.
We're giving away about 31 different scholarships ranging from $1,000 to $500 to $250. So all participants are eligible to win a scholarship.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming and joining us. We appreciate it. Alberto Maldonado from UWM. College Day, College Go Wisconsin. That's the name of it.
College Go Wisconsin.
Go take advantage of it. Go to college.
Please do.
The money's there. Thank you.
On the field, he's proving to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But it's what he does off the field that has Green Bay Packer Donald Driver becoming a favorite of fans everywhere.
There you go. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anything else?
According to those that work with Driver, it's the man and not the player that makes him so special. His passion for giving back to the various communities which he has personal ties is a true testament that this NFL player has not forgotten where he has come from.
He's one of the football players that gets it. He's a guy who has come from real humble beginnings, and he'll tell you the story of himself growing up and stealing cars and finally turning his life around and getting to where he feels that he can give back to society. I remember on the day that he signed his big contract, he started crying on the podium saying, now my grandma's not going to have to work anymore. And that was the biggest thing for him, not I can have a nice car and I can get some jewelry. It was my family is going to be set. And he's one of those guys that understands what football is doing for him and then what he can then do for other people. In fact, when we started Inside the Pack with Donald Driver, we said, well, what kind of payment do you want to work out? And he says, look, as long as my foundation is getting, I'd rather have you pay the foundation rather than pay me, because I'd really like to get this foundation started where they're giving away houses and they're giving away shelter for the Hurricane Katrina victims. And you know, we had our big night last Friday where they raised more than $60,000 for Katrina relief and to house families, and he knows what it's like to be homeless. And so he has come that long swing from one side to the other, and he does not forget it. And that's a great thing about Donald. He knows where he's come from, and he knows how many people are still there, and that he can help them and pull them back up there.
Donald, talk a little bit about your philosophy on giving back.
I remember when I was a kid, someone used to ask me for money on the street, and I go, I don't have it. But now when I go home, the same person that asked me years ago are older now. And I look at that person different than I looked at them when I was a kid, because I can be in that same boat, and I was in that same boat as they were. So I know how they feel when they said, can you let me borrow this, or can I have this? You know, people always say, when you say borrow, that means you're gonna pay them back. So and it's surprising because most people that I have met that's homeless always say, let me borrow. They don't say, let me have. And then I always ask them, are you gonna pay me back? And they say, one way or the other, I will. And that's not saying pay me back with money. It's paying me back by what they go out and do to help another person. And that's what I get from it.
Talk a little bit about the Donald Driver Foundation and its core mission.
You know, we started the foundation in 2000, and it was something that was dear to my heart because I grew up homeless, and I didn't have the backgrounds of the education side as well. So I was trying to make sure that kids get education as well as mothers and fathers are stable in an environment to where they don't have to, where their kids are stable. And you know, they always say a child is only as stable as their home. And we feel like that's why we make sure that, you know, homeless families are able to, you know, have a new beginning.
Recently, Donald and his wife Bettina hosted a gala to benefit victims of Hurricane Katrina. Nearly 200 friends shared their support and helped raise over $60,000.
Our foundation deals with the homeless issue, and right now, you think about it, right now they have about 750,000 people right now in New Orleans that's going to be homeless. And half of those families have moved to San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Arkansas, and we felt like it was time for our foundation to make a difference in not just single mothers, but just the homeless issue, period. Because, you know, my mom was a single mother. You know, I didn't have a dad, so it was kind of like, that's why I was making sure that women didn't have to depend on men. Because men, I feel like they should be that bread and that butter to go out and make that money for that woman to be at home and relax and take care of the kids. So that's why I strive to myself to making sure my wife never has to work a day in her life. So that's the reason that we started this, and we wanted to make sure that these families from Hurricane Katrina have a better life now. You know, and now I think they think their life is over, where the Donald Driver Foundation want to make it now and let them know that it's just beginning.
Sports agent Brian Lammy, also the president of the Driver Foundation, says Driver has set the bar high in the area of giving back.
Well, obviously, when I first met him, I didn't know a whole lot about him. And, you know, it's so many different athletes have different personalities, but I think I learned pretty quickly that obviously he's a guy who likes to give back. He's a guy who recognizes everybody in the room, is very friendly to everybody. I think he's as good of a person, you know, behind the scenes and off the camera as he is in front of it or when he's on the field, which is pretty special. So I think as I've gotten to know him more, I consider him a good friend, not just a client.
In each locker room, you find a handful of guys that are really interested in giving back to the community. In our locker room, he's one of them.
Donald, after you retire from football, which will say be now for another 20 years, what do you hope will remain as your legacy?
I remember Reggie White saying, you know, don't worry about him. You know, everyone was worrying about Reggie White that day. He said, don't worry about him. He always would say, don't worry about my legacy, worry about your own. And he left a legacy not just on that football field, but in the eyes of everyone in the country. And that's what I want to be able to do. You know, everyone knows me as the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, but I want to be able to help so much in the community that they remember me just as that person.
So what's next for Donald Driver?
You know, it's real hard to say, you know, because my life is, I guess you can say, it's not over. And, you know, you have so many goals in life, and there's so many things that you would like to do. So I haven't put my finger on the whole life story yet, and what my goal and what God has given me to do. You know, I feel like it may be the homeless issue and education, but then something else may come up and say, you know something, let's do, instead of doing 2 things, let's do 3 things. So it's not over, you know, but I think right now it's just, my philosophy is just to make sure that people have a better life.
Before we close tonight, a reminder that the 10th annual Daddy-Daughter Dance will be held on Saturday, February 16th from 5 to 8 p.m. at North Division High School. You must pre-register, and you call 414-475-8811. And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Good night.